There we go. I apologize to all those who I just very much disrupted by ending the coffee chat. What an incredible coffee chat it was. It was as intense a conversation on our social principles and values as I have been engaged in a long time. So here's hoping that worship is similarly inspiring. Hi Grace, hi Nancy, it's good to see you both. As people are filtering on and getting their videos on, I will share a hymn with you. Uh, good Palm Sunday hymn, Tell Me the Stories of Jesus. I encourage you to sing along, but if you're singing along boisterously, please be on mute. But anyway, I will share my screen and the hymn, and I pray that it will be meaningful. There we are. Tell me the stories of Jesus, I long to hear. Things I would ask him to tell me if he were here. Scenes by the wayside, tales by the sea. Stories of Jesus, tell them to me. First let me hear how the children stood round his knee, and I shall fancy his blessings resting on me. Words full of kindness, deeds full of grace, stood in the love light of Jesus' face. Into the city he followed, the children's band, waving the branch of the palm tree high in my hand. One of his heralds, yes, I would sing, stood his hosannas, Jesus is King. Thank you for joining along. It is a cacophony, but it is a holy noise, and I appreciate your presence and your voices here on this Palm Sunday. As we continue to censor ourselves for worship, I have a poem to share with you once again by Reverend Sarah R., entitled Peaceful Protests. I wonder if Jesus could feel his heartbeat in his throat the way I do when I'm afraid. I wonder if he had to take deep breaths, in through his nose, out through his mouth, tricking his body into a state of calm. I wonder if he was nauseous like I am, when I'm headed into a hard conversation. I wonder if he had to summon his courage, tucking fear away so that he could hold on to what mattered most with both hands. I wonder, because time has taught us that it is not uncommon for a peaceful protest to start or end with an unjust death. So I wonder, did he know? Was he afraid? Did anyone see it? I want to hold what matters with both hands. So, given that we're into Holy Weekend and therefore all the things, we're back to just one scripture reading a Sunday. There's an Isaiah passage that is out there looming for Palm Sunday, and I encourage you to read it if you'd like. But for now, are there any joys or concerns that you would like to share with each other this morning?
Well, we were talking about guns and violence and things like that earlier before. And there was this one little boy who's 11 years old. He got shot when he was just riding in his car, and I found out he's paralyzed now from the waist down because of this. And I just want to pray for him because that is just so sad that God heals him and that this is just a temporary situation. It's just so unfair that that little boy got shot, and he's only a little boy. He probably woke up. He can't believe now that he's just paralyzed because someone just shot him. And I just
Yeah.
want to pray for him that Jesus completely heals.
Prayers for all the victims of gun violence and their families and all of the rippling repercussions from senseless acts of violence that we perpetuate against each other. So certainly prayers for the boy as he's paralyzed and all those around him. Are there other joys or concerns this morning that you have to share with one another?
I got my second shot, and again, no reaction to it whatsoever. So
Wonderful.
it's amazing because generally, if somebody sneezed in the next county, I got strep throat. It was kind of how my life was, and so I'm very lucky. I'm very happy. And 2 weeks from yesterday, I'm getting a haircut.
Wonderful.
That's the most excitement there is.
The joy of getting back to some of those comforts after this pandemic and for more shots going into more arms. I got my first shot last Saturday, and I'll be fully vaccinated the week after Easter. So I'm looking forward to that.
2 weeks after that, you're, kosher for Passover, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
Are there other joys or concerns that you have to share with one another?
Well, we saw my mom, and she moved her hands in her head. That's about it. She's really very, but not as grim as we thought it would seem. But she's not bedridden, but she's basically moved from bed to chair to bed. She can't stand up or do anything on her own now. It's a mixed bag. She feels so bad, and she cries about she's waiting. She just says, why doesn't the good Lord just take me? And she told me a couple times she wants to go to sleep and not wake up. But if you say the H word, that being hospice, so hard to help. And we're dealing with the money issues in a big way now, and trying to get through to her that we have to make a change. And of course, that my sister and I privately think that just saying the words nursing home might kill her, as would be understandable. And the one that actually my mom's lawyer in an email on Friday told me that his late father was at the one that where she lives recommended, because it's sort of under the same umbrella company, was a really bad place. So it's not just the Yelp reviews, it's somebody we actually know who says, oh God, no, don't put her there. So if anybody would like a 101-year-old woman to come live with them.
As I mentioned in the last chat, I'm struggling to keep houseplants alive, but I'll certainly be praying for peace and comfort for your mother and for your entire family.
Thank you.
Are there other joys or concerns to share this morning?
My favorite author, Beverly Cleary, when I was a child, I loved her book. She lived to be 104 years old, so that's a blessing. Yeah, it's really. She just died. She was 104 years old. That's awesome.
Yeah, I read that. I was too old for Ramona and Beezus, but I was certainly aware of her from having nieces.
Eleanor Tibbetts I read, and Henry Huggins or something. Those are the ones I read. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she sounded neat. And Larry McMurtry. as well. And he's somebody whose work I greatly enjoyed. So everybody saw or read Lonesome Dove, I think, when it was on television. But I'd read a lot of his stuff, and
Well,
you know,
it is something profound to reflect on the joy that authors, creators, artists give to bless our lives and bring us to worlds that we might not imagine by ourselves. So,
Yep.
yeah. Are there other joys or concerns this morning?
Our friend who had his first chemo 9 or 10 days ago is mostly doing okay. He felt quite well at first, and a little diminution or whatever, a little less so since. But you know, we're glad that it's not a dreadful situation for him.
His cancer is stage 2, actually, which is good. Not good, but heck a lot better than 4.
Yeah. Although
Definitely.
we've known stage 4 colon cancer friends who had surgery and that was it, and has lived many years past that, at least 12 now. So stage 2 by comparison seems great, but different cancers, different treatment. Nobody wants to have it, but we're glad that the treatment exists, I guess.
Absolutely. Are there other joys or concerns before we join our hearts in prayer?
I don't know if this was mentioned, but I don't think Bob's son Doug, who wrote Slavery by Another Name. And I know, Paul, you were at the event, but the Justice Center hosted an evening with Doug Blackman talking about his book and race relations in the U.S. And there were a good number of people who attended, and it was a good discussion. And Doug was brilliant as always in making a lot of people aware of a history that we need to know about as we think about really this issue. So thank you to Bob and thank you to Doug. And it was a good educational awareness raising thing. So,
I could have done without the baseball cap. But, other than that, it's like.
Not a fan of wearing hats indoors.
looking like a true dad.
Yeah.
Well, and Bob, it was a joy to hear about your speeding tickets and some more pastoral insight into your life as well.
Doug was the driver.
Doug got that. He got that speeding.
Yeah.
I was riding with him when he got that speeding.
And it was in Vermont, which is such a harsh state.
We were on a smooth road in Vermont at 11 o'clock at night after him having a speaking engagement in Manchester. And he was cruising along at about 79 miles an hour in a 55-mile speed.
Yeah. You don't do that in Troy unless you want to fly over the level.
They're very nice young policeman who stopped us said, you know, in Vermont, you were 1 mile short of a criminal event, a criminal offense.
They're strict in Vermont.
What's that?
Should be most
They're
places.
strict in Vermont.
What?
They're strict in Vermont. This for laws, and when you speed, they have strict laws in Vermont.
I guess in Vermont, I'm not sure, but I guess in Vermont, if you're X number of miles over the speed limit, and that would, if he had been going 80 miles an hour in a 55-mile speed zone,
There'd have been
it would have been a criminal offense.
We're in Pennsylvania, the roadside billboards actually state if it says 60 and you're going 65, this is the fine. If you're going 70, this is the fine. It's a great deterrent.
Yeah.
Keeps you on your toes.
I noticed that Doug was, I probably deliberately kind of angling that toward me, but I was not the driver. He was the driver.
When we were traveling.
Noted. Are there other joys or concerns for this time, though?
Well, even though there's so much to be worried about, and rightly so. I can't help feeling a little the hopeful spring thing, even if today's high is going to be what, 24 or something.
No,
Oh,
55.
oh,
Tonight's gonna be 34.
oh, well, something with a 4. Anyway, we've had some nice days, and inevitably, that helps. Although I'm reading a book called The Loneliest Polar Bear, which is an environmental education in a different kind of way. And so far there are tears because of what's going on in the environment that has an impact on the critters, which have an impact on so I'm worried, I'm scared and worried, but I'm also happy that it's warmer. Definitely. And whoever put that in the bulletin, is that aimed at me? Just only me about spring? By the way, I don't know if it was Paul or Ron.
Ron.
He puts it in and it gets personalized for everybody.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, he found a cool tool.
Nice.
And I do have a great joy for Ron, just how much he's been helping with the communication through those emails and how effective those have been. I am so grateful for Ron's presence as lay leader in addition to taking on those tasks. Even though he's not with us this morning, I'm very thankful for him. Any more joys or concerns before we join each other in prayer?
Oh, my cat was spotted like 2 weeks ago at building 2, and then more recently, just a few days ago, at building 5. He's around, and my friend Patty says he looks healthy. And she tried to catch him though, because she put her dog in the house, but he ran away. That's the problem. But he's around, he's healthy, and we're just gonna have to see how we can get him.
Yeah.
Wants to come home.
It's been a while, so that's great.
So if we can just pray that we find a way to get him home, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, let's join our hearts together in prayer this morning. At the end of the prayer, we'll say the Lord's Prayer together, and I invite you to say it however you learned it, however you're most comfortable. But let us pray. Gracious and loving God, thank you for resting on our hearts as the hooves of that donkey so long ago rested on the palms that were laid down on the road. God, continue to offer a firm and present assurance that you are with us no matter the chaos, no matter what's going on, no matter how much seems to be happening in our lives and around us. Continue to be present for us each and every day. God, there's so much hope in the air as the weather warms, as vaccines continue to be distributed, as restrictions are eased prayerfully with caution, but eased nonetheless, as we continue to hope for spring. But God, just like the liturgical events of this week, we know it will be a tumultuous season. We've already been through so much with the gun violence that has been growing, it seems, in all corners of the country and the world, with tensions flaring as cabin fever has hit its high, with people going back to doctors and seeing the health issues that have come up over the past year. With so much happening, God, we ask that you be just as present with us as any time before. Nonetheless, God, we can see and feel your presence as there's so much happening that gives us hope, whether it's listening to a presentation about the ways that we might treat your children as more fully your children, seeing advances in health, seeing ways in which we might perceive the world differently. God, continue to hold us to that hope, even in the darkest days of this coming week. God, it's with that hope that we look to be better neighbors, that we look to be better friends. It's with that hope that we remember that you walked and lived and felt and cried and sang and eventually laid down your life for your friends. God, even in the most ominous times, remind us that hope springs up in the morning, and that at the end of this there will be dancing. But in the meantime, God, continue to shape us as your disciples, as we remember the prayer that Jesus taught the disciples in saying, Our God, who art in heaven, hallowed it be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be
Thy
done,
will be done
on
on
earth
earth
as is in heaven.
in heaven.
Give us this
Give us
day
this
our
day
daily
our
bread,
bread,
and forgive us our
our
trespasses,
trespasses,
and
As
we
forgive
forgive
those
those
who
who trespass against us. And lead us not into
Unto
temptation,
temptation,
but deliver us from
deliver
evil.
us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom,
For thine is the kingdom,
and the power,
power,
and the glory forever and ever.
and glory forever.
Amen. So this week's scripture is, again, from John chapter 12, this time verses 1 through 19. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus went to Bethany, the village of Lazarus, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. There they gave a banquet in Jesus' honor, at which Martha served. Lazarus was one of those at the table. Mary brought a pound of costly ointment, pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, wiping them with her hair. The house was full of the scent of the ointment. Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, the one who was to betray Jesus, protested, Why wasn't this ointment sold? It could have brought nearly a year's wages, and the money been given to the poor people. Judas didn't say this because he was concerned for poor people, but because he was a thief. He was in charge of the common fund and would help himself to it. So Jesus replied, Leave her alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. You have poor people with you always, but you won't always have me. Meanwhile, a large crowd heard that Jesus was there and came to see not only Jesus, but also Lazarus, whom he raised from the dead. So the chief priests planned to kill Lazarus as well, since it was because of him that many of the people were leaving them and believing in Jesus. That next day, the great crowds that had come for the Passover feast heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they got palm branches and went out to meet him. They shouted joyfully, Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of our God, the ruler of Israel. Jesus rode in, sitting upon a donkey, in accord with Scripture. Fear not, O people of Zion, your ruler comes to you sitting on a donkey's colt. At the time, the disciples didn't understand all this, but after Jesus was glorified, they recalled that the people had done to him precisely what had been written about him. Those who had been present when Jesus called Lazarus from the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to spread the word. A crowd gathered, and they went out to meet Jesus because they had heard he had performed this miraculous sign. Then the Pharisees said to one another, See, this is getting us nowhere. Look, the whole world is running after him. Hear what the Spirit is saying to you this day. Amen. The Gospel of John paints such a dramatic picture in this verse. It lays out a scene where, in preparation for the highest religious celebration of the Jewish calendar, there's electrifying excitement in the air. There's anticipation that rivals the anticipation that so many people are feeling now as we wait to travel, get vaccines, just go to our favorite coffee shop again and be around people. There is an angst, there's a tension, there is competition, there is a drive to be present, there's a drive to see what's happening, there's a drive for some to get what they want out of it rather than seeing the potential of what God might have. It's a story of human existence, it's a story of stilted drama, it's a story that has a tragic ending, but such a hopeful reprise to tell us that it is not all over yet. This is a Palm Passion Sunday. There is just as much of the pomp and circumstance as we see Jesus celebrating with Lazarus, who he raised from the dead, and riding into Jerusalem as people thronged around him. But yet we have the ominous foretelling of what will happen on Thursday and Friday, in addition to the painful silence of Saturday. We can't engage in Palm Sunday without the looming anxiety that comes with the rest of Holy Week. Yet we can't engage with our lives today with the hope and expectation that is to come without also seeing so much pain, so much frustration, so much that is going awry as well. It's fascinating to me that this particular passage is bookended with examples of people not recognizing the potential of God in the world, but rather seeking to fulfill their own ends. It's beginning with Judas being jealous that there is costly ointment being spent to anoint Jesus in this way, instead of going to a place where he might misappropriate it. And it ends with the Pharisees being jealous that there are people thronging after Jesus who they've been in a academic battle with throughout the Gospel of John, instead of listening to them, attending their rituals, and practicing faith as they see fit. It's a struggle, and nobody gets everything right in the coming days. Yesterday, I was away. I was down at Sky Lake. I was doing some of the chores that I've been doing down there, but I took some time out from those chores because there was a group of people gathered to boil some maple syrup. In the midst of that boiling, the boiling was being done by other volunteers. I've been the volunteer maintenance person, but we've had a volunteer development person as well as a volunteer chair of the board to help with some of the communications with the conference. In the midst of that, I had a great conversation where I admitted all of the things that I have broken over the past several months and my feeble attempts to fix the things that I've been breaking. It was odd just how nice it was to have that conversation and to be teased about the number of things that I was breaking. Everything is about to be broken in this week liturgically. The friendships are going to be strains. The disciples will deny Jesus. Jesus will have an opportunity to get away and continue life, but chooses to look after his friends rather than himself. The Pharisees will break their moral commitments, and ultimately it all leads to a horrific scene that could have been prevented in so many ways, just like so many tragedies. I'm finding it important to admit when I have broken something so that I can learn from it and so that I either know how to fix it or know how to prevent it from breaking again. This story of Jesus reminds us that we as people have the potential to celebrate something but also break it at the same time. We have the ability to see something beautiful and foster it, but yet see it on its way to the cross as well. I pray that as we enter this Palm Passion Sunday, that we engage in the celebration, that we feel how triumphant it is to see a humble figure of Christ riding into Jerusalem on a young donkey, but yet learn from the mistakes so that we stop repeating them and so many others' deaths. Talking about breaking things is hard, but I pray that it's something that will lead to God's kingdom being realized on this earth. So I'll start by saying that the list of things that I've broken have been the backhoe for 2 months when I couldn't get it started, the trim on the door that I slid the back end of the dump truck into because of the ice. I broke the vise this week as I was trying to fix the rotary broom. I sheared the key on the rotary broom, which led to breaking the vise. I fixed that key though. That's the top of my list of what I've broken. What are some of the things that you all have broken recently? And have you learned anything from it?
So is the net effect for you positive?
Generally, yeah. Every time I break, one of the former maintenance people showed up as well, but admitted that his first year as a maintenance person at this camp, he was just told to turn the water off, so he turned the water off. Then in the spring, when he turned the water back on, he spent 3 weeks fixing all the water leaks. And
You're not at risk of losing your volunteer position. That's good.
No. But what are some of the things that you might have broken, that you might have learned something from then?
I think we all have broken some of our goals and our promises to ourselves of things to do and movements and being nicer to people from time to time. We all fall back into that. I can't think of any big things I've broken this week. There must be something, but it's something. If you're going to do things, you're going to make mistakes, and that's life. So don't be too hard on yourself, Paul. You need some help fixing something, let me know. I'd be happy to help you.
Will do.
How do you break a vise?
There's a pin in there you can break off, or you can tighten it up too much and bend. First thing is bending the handle. The next thing is using it as an anvil, and you hit it with a hammer, and then you break off part of the cast iron. People do it.
This vise is an old one, a big old bench vise. So it has an Acme screw and a nut. I broke the nut clear in half. So yeah.
Very powerful.
You can make another one, or you can order one.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But are there other things that have been broken that you learned from? Whether it's a recipe that hasn't quite gone right, whether it's a relationship, whether it's messing up a filing system and having to refile things. Those are all things that I've done lately. But are there others that are important to learn from?
I was making Ron a travel vest and I'd already put the front zipper in, and then it came time to hem it and I realized I hadn't left enough material on the bottom to turn under, so I had to take out the zipper, which is a pain to put in the first place, and I'm not making that mistake again.
We've all done that one.
Yeah, but there was a deadline on this.
Well,
Is
I
he
know I'm not,
traveling now without the vest? Is that why he's not here?
I'll tell you later.
uh-oh.
Okay.
Well, Nancy, when I used to sew all my clothes, my favorite thing was putting the sleeves on backwards,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And then you wonder why it's not fitting?
Yeah, it's like, why can't I move my shoulders?
I never liked
But yeah, there's always something broken when you're sewing things.
when I'm not an accomplished seamstress, but I can sew. But years ago, when Ellie was tiny, I got a pattern to make, and I did make her a reversible, little wraparound top kind of, and I followed the directions, even though they seemed to be written in a whole different language for somebody with an extra dimension to their work. And it worked out, but I mean, I felt at times like this cannot be right. This will strangle anybody who tries to wear, So, yeah, it can be challenging.
I have been,
You have been,
I have not been to a store to buy a new pair of jeans in a year. So the ones I have, which aren't very many, are wearing out. This morning, I was putting on a pair that had a hole in the knee, and I was in a hurry, and I heard a big rip, and I had put my foot into that hole, and I made a small tear, a very large tear now. So I learned that some things are already wounded, and it's better to treat them gently. And every person we meet has some wound somewhere also, and so they deserve to be treated with some gentleness and understanding.
it has to be the first denim allegory ever.
Something
Or less than.
Those kind of jeans are quite in style.
I was going to say, Grace could tell us that they're in style.
Yes,
They were known as venerable.
this
I
is
can
America,
take that.
bigger is better.
Uh,
I can take
Definitely big pants are in.
I'm talking about rips. You have a big rip is better than a small rip.
Yeah.
Can you?
I have one as well. I've been very anxious because I'm getting college decisions. I've been getting college decisions over the past couple of weeks, and I have 2 more weeks, I think, of it. And at one point, I had like 5 college tours open on my computer, all of the college tabs open, and I was just refreshing because I wanted the decisions, and my computer crashed. So patience maybe is the lesson there. I don't know.
And what did you say?
I've come up those 4 years that we just barely lived through. I discovered a talent I didn't know I had for creative profanity. I've put together words in ways that just are so painful, and I still hope they come to pass. Grace, where are you waiting to hear from? No, don't ask. I'm sorry, forget I asked.
I think it's very unpredictable this year, and I got into my safety net, but other than that, it hasn't been great news.
It has been harrowing.
I'm sure.
But I have a couple more that I'm holding out hope for.
Is your mom recommending RPI?
I doubt it.
I'm in that fight at RPI.
I doubt it.
Whatever school you go to, the main thing is to have fun, enjoy it, and make great friends for life.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Whichever location, it's not going to make that much difference in the long run. It's the friends you make and having memories.
Well, I have, I guess, a joyful hope or hopeful joy in that Chrissy signed a lease this week. 2 of her friends from the one semester she actually spent at Boston University And she had signed a lease on an apartment, so she's planning to be actually in Boston instead of in her room going to Boston University again. She'll be a senior. And it's so strange that she'll have spent so little time, you know, on the campus, but she and how many thousands of other kids. So and it's sad because the getting socialized, like Bruce said, you know, meeting friends and friends from all over is an important part of the college experience. The
Main
learn.
part of the experience.
Hmm.
Everything else you get done reading a book.
I don't know. I learned a lot.
I wouldn't worry about it so much. I only encouraged my children to apply to 1 or 2 schools, and that was it. And that's all I applied for, so that's all you really need. Pick out one you like and apply for that and make it happen.
In the midst of talking about breaking things at camp, I was asked how I learned to do the things that I was able to do and how to figure out how to fix the things that I broke. My answer to that was I didn't spend a lot of time in undergrad studying for my theater and psychology classes. I spent a whole lot of time in the scene shop and a whole lot of time working for buildings and grounds, and seem to have, for this period of my life at least, come up with a decent hybrid of the academic chops to keep engaging with hard questions while also finding that respite and making a difference in other places. To change the topic though a little bit, as we focus on the things that we have broken or misplaced, in the midst of that, in the midst of recovering from that, in the midst of learning from that, what are some of the things that can cloud our eyes that make us see anger instead of making us look towards the potential of Christ's love? This is my reflection on Judas and the Pharisees in the story that we read. So again, as we reflect on what we've broken and the process of trying to learn from it, what are the things that cloud our eyes so that we see anger instead of Christ's love?
All the problems we see in the world cloud our eyes many times to the love that's all around us and the good people that are around us and people that are trying to do good. We need to spend more time on them and what is good, what we can improve on it. And as you're doing volunteering, and while you're volunteering, you might break a few things. That's part of doing things.
Similarly, I think the tedious day-to-day stuff that we encounter, if something would have bothered me in the olden days before COVID, now it bothers me, you know, and so just our reactions to the normal bad things in the world, in my case, they've gotten revved up. It's hard for me to mellow out about one thing when one injustice, one terrible event, when another one is sure to follow hot on its heels. So I guess I'm broken because my responses are to wonder, you know, what can I do? You know, I can help in the background, you know, help the sender reading documents and designing the letterhead and things like that. But what really can I do? That's a thing for me.
So
I mean,
the fear and the smallness being a roadblock to seeing some love for yourself or for others in the midst of this. Are there other thoughts?
Our personal prejudices, I think, do too. You know, you want to respond to a situation with love, or somebody else's anger to love, or you know, people who profess to be Christians all the time just talk about poor people being lazy and not wanting to work, and those prejudices really prevent us from seeing everybody and reacting to everybody with love like Christ would do.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
You do hear that a lot. Unfortunately, I've heard that so many times about people too. You know, and that may just really not be true. We don't know these people and their situations and circumstances to be able to judge, and only God knows, and you know, and to say things like that. It's true. It's a prejudice,
Things like that, yeah.
like what she was saying. That is true.
Yeah.
Are there other thoughts on that question?
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah, we can see that.
I think last week you raised the, how do you said it very elegantly, but essentially it was, how do you move past what's been into making something good of what's to be, and there are things that stand in the middle of that, you know, like if you're, you know, certainly you need to examine if you've contributed to a situation and then figure it out, but you know, sometimes it's just something you can't control, but you still need to figure out how to make it be the best it can be. And sometimes you have to realize too, you can't, it's good to consult with others and pray about it and all those good things. And I think the other thing too is that I know one of the takeaways, I had to struggle to make it not a takeaway really, was on the webinar the other night. There was some difficult conversation around how do we look at our own history in terms of racism, and you know, and one person's response, and somebody started in the chat started sort of jumping down this person's throat, and it was like, that was so inappropriate. You know, it doesn't help to be judging other people's actions when you don't know fully what it's about. So.
It's easier to believe a blanket statement that somebody makes than to think about the individuals that are part of the blanket, you know, the warp and the weft of the.
And I think it's also back to that, you know, do you remove the speck from somebody else's eye or take the log out of your own?
To further torture the idea you can't walk a mile in somebody else's shoes if you've never made a point of meeting somebody else, somebody not like ourselves. Oh, that was a good idea I just had.
Are there any other thoughts or questions before we engage with our second hymn of the day? So this will take me a minute to set up, and you'll be seeing an odd thought process as I get the screen ready to share. But you have the treat of not being subjected to my singing this time. I asked a friend to help record a hymn, so this is my friend Bobby Hoffman singing We Sang Our Glad Hosannas. So bear with me as I set up my screen.
You, the Bobby.
Yeah. So there's that, and there's that.
the dark branches high, but some were silent, frowning as Jesus rode on by. They sought a royal savior, but did not understand. The king could rule by loving instead of by command. We heard an angry Jesus in temple courts declare, "Begone, you money changers, this is a house of prayer." Though many came for healing and stayed to hear his word, still others hostile plotted, and thus his death assured. We served him at the table with wine, unleavened bread. The one who will betray me now eats with me, he said. His friends would not believe him, but one by one that night, as soldiers came to take him, they scurried out of sight. We saw suffering Jesus alone without a friend, and heard the voices shouting abuse until the end. We wept as we stood watching love's light grow dim and die, and cried, "Why did this happen? God, tell us why." We buried him, not knowing that on that third day morn, a risen Christ would greet us, and hope would be reborn. Though evil had extinguished the life that burned so bright, the love of God would triumph like dawn that ends the night.
I can't think of a more perfect hymn for Palm/Passion Sunday that goes through all of the emotions of the week to come, but also ends with that reminder that though it will be a dark period, there will be that hope and that light on Easter morning. Some announcements. Being Holy Week, there is a lot going on. So Tuesday night at 7 p.m. we will have a shorter Lenten study, but we will still have a Lenten study Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We will have a Monday, Thursday dinner Zoom Thursday at 6 p.m. We'll do some virtual communion in the midst of that, so save some elements out of dinner for that. We will have a Good Friday Zoom service at 7 p.m. On Friday. Also look for some additional videos that are coming up on YouTube and Facebook throughout the week. I am planning an Easter sunrise thing. I am planning it in such a way that I don't plan on many of you attending, but just to have an Easter sunrise thing, I'm planning an Easter sunrise thing. because I'm planning on not many people attending, it'll be in the little bit of the church garden that is open. It'll be at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday. So if you are feeling sprightly, feel free to join us, but otherwise that'll be recorded and posted to YouTube as well. Easter morning will be on our normal Sunday schedule as it has been since December. We'll have a 9:30 coffee chat and a 10:30 Zoom worship as well. And then planning on going back to a hybrid worship model on April 11th. Again, that is statistically the lowest attended Sunday of the year. So to get our feet wet as we get back into that. So there will be services open to people joining in the sanctuary on April 11th. But again, I strongly encourage as many of you as feel comfortable engaging with worship virtually to continue to do so as we continue through this pandemic. That's a lot, but are there any other thoughts or announcements or things coming up that you have for each other?
Well, it's just a thought, but I really look forward to seeing people in real life, even though it'll be waving across the sanctuary. It certainly won't be hugging or even fist bumps. But by the same token, I told you before, Paul, I feel as if these Zoom things are, goodness, I'm echoing, are so much more interactive that I feel like I at least have gotten a little bit better read on how different people's thought processes are, which I've come to appreciate. So for the frustration of not being together, I still found that this to be something that I look forward to. So
I will let you know that you all are the envy of my clergy group that gathers, that we have a congregation that's actively involved in discussion-based worship is a dream for most pastors. So I appreciate your presence and your participation, and most of my thoughts on my drives lately have been centered on how to continue this in person as well. So there'll be some growing pains, but we'll figure it out. Yeah. With that, I pray that we will face the faults and failures that are coming this week with a heart of grace, reassured by the hope that is to come in Easter, and doing our best to see the love of Christ as we look to respond to all that happens in our midst over the next few days. May we have peace. May we have grace for ourselves as we enter into this Holy Week. I look forward to seeing you all in many different facets throughout the next several days. But I pray that you go in peace this day. Thank you again.
Peace be with you all.
Yes.
it comes 3220, Henry.